What's up? In this video I'd like to give you 3 specific tips on how to make sure you're always playing right with your pawns. First game we're analyzing as an example of the first rule is the game between Andreikin against Kraken, because the thing about the pawns is that since they can never go back, moving your pawn has long-term consequences. I also noticed that often while analyzing games with my students, I noticed that if they aren't sure what to do, for some reason they start pushing a pawn, and very often they do it all wrong. Therefore I wanted to warn against that. Alright, so far we've got pretty standard development, and black plays the move pawn to g6. Now what do you think about this move? Is it a good move, a bad move, or just average move? It looks like a normal development move, preparing for the bishop to go there and to fianchetto the bishop, but here's the point. The first rule we're going to talk about states that you should not weaken your pawn structure for no reason. For example, by pushing the pawn here to g6, black creates here a series of these holes around the pawn, which can possibly be used for the white's pieces to go there and to create massive attack against black. Even though it certainly does not seem like a real problem at the moment, once again, since the pawn can never go back, this problem will stay there forever, for the rest of the game, and it's very hard to fix it. And that is why I'm saying do not weaken your pawn for no reason. In this case, even though it seemingly prepares development of the bishop, but the bishop could be developed along this diagonal, right? You can develop it right away with bishop c5 or bishop b4. It doesn't require any additional preparation, such as this move pawn to g6. Anyway, let's come back to the game and see what happened next. White played pawn to d4, takes, and here instead of recapturing with a knight, white played a bit sudden move knight to d5. The knight actually takes aim at this one of the weaknesses, already showing black that white is going to try to take advantage of this weakness. Black played bishop g7 according to their plan, and now bishop g5. And it's interesting how these two pieces came together to create some strong pressure against black, seemingly out of nothing. And black is already somewhat in trouble, because it's not that easy to somehow cover these weaknesses. They played the most natural move knight to e7, and now there comes another sudden move, knight takes d4. White is sacrificing the knight here on d4, but black can't really take it. If they take it with their knight, then they have a disaster on the e7 square. Bishop takes, and now the queen is captured and has no way out. So let's take a move back here. Instead of that, what if black takes on d4 with their bishop? That seems okay, but in this case white can sacrifice an entire queen right here to eliminate the final defender of all these weak squares. And now after black captures the queen, there goes knight to f6 using one of these weaknesses, and after king f6, bishop to h6. It's a beautiful checkmate position where both of the white's minor pieces occupied these weak squares and delivered a quick and simple checkmate. Just notice how brilliant it is, and once again, this would never happen if the black's pawn would be on g7, but because it was moved here, white could take advantage of these holes and deliver such a spectacular checkmate. Here's example number 2. It was white to move, and white here takes the black's bishop on g6. Here comes the question, should you recapture here with a queen or with a pawn? And in this case, the correct response would be pawn takes g6. Here you may wonder, hey Igor, but you just said in the previous example that you shouldn't weaken your pawns, and now you're obviously creating these weaknesses which can be used by white in the future. For example, white can try to target these pawns and to win them in some possible endgame position. Well, that's something that classical chess books or tutorials do not really teach you. They're talking about weak squares, weak pawns, but here's the truth. The chess game mainly is about the activity of your pieces, right? Because they're a lot stronger than your opponents, and therefore you should always put the highest priority to the activity of your pieces. And if you can increase your activity even by weakening your pawn structure, it is worth it, because again, pieces are just a lot stronger. In this case, after taking it here with a pawn, you open up the h-file, which enables your rook to take part in the attack. And it's already pretty hard for white to protect their pawn on h3, and white is already actually appears in a losing position. For example, if they just play king to g2, then you can break through here by sacrificing the rook and then bring the other one to h8, and after that you just keep chasing the king, and ultimately it will be checkmated in a variation like that. So it just illustrates the idea that while considering pawns, you should always, in fact, think about activity of your pieces. Here's the third example that illustrates the third rule, and it is white to move. What do you think about this position? How would you play here as white? Very often positions like that puzzle chess players, because they know that normally in a game of chess you want to checkmate an opponent's king, but there is no easy way to do that. There is no obvious way at all on how I can deliver an attack there. And then it's fairly unclear what can be the aim of your next moves. And here comes the third rule. You can attack opponent's pawns, and that's in fact one of the main plans that you should be using either in a middle game or in an end game. Quite contrary to the common belief that you should always target opponent's king, you can in fact attack opponent's pawns. For example, you can play pawn to c4, take an aim at this pawn, and if black plays something, anything, after trading pawns here on d5, you create this weakness, the pawn on d5, which can no longer be supported by other pawns of black, and after that you can easily line up your heavy pieces against it along the d-file and put strong pressure and hopefully win it, which will give you a superior position and easily winning endgame potentially, and it's just a very clear, simple winning plan that you can follow here. Let's also take a move back here and try to use a similar plan for black. Let me play a few moves back here. Let's say instead of following this correct plan, white just was not sure what to do and simply placed their knight in the center, thinking, okay, this move, a move like that cannot be bad, you're centralizing the knight. And now black can actually use a similar plan by attacking their pawns. Let's say they play pawn to f6, taking advantage of this pin and trying to pressure your pawn on e5. Now it's really hard to defend it, and if white tries to push it forward, black can play pawn to f5 in order to isolate this pawn so that you can never support it with the other pawn, and then again this pawn on e6 becomes a long-term target for black. They can easily put their heavy pieces against it, double rooks along the e-file, and they can always trade their knight and then try winning this pawn. Once again, you can see how clear and simple this plan can be for black and how effective it is at this very same time. If you want to bring your chess to the next level and achieve the breakthrough results that you were aiming for maybe for years, then let me remind you that the special offers on our newly launched course, 3 Steps to 2000 ELO, will be over in just a few days, or maybe within one day if you're watching this video a bit later. So if you don't want to miss out, you may click the link on the screen or below the video and check this out right now. I've created this course to help you to get these breakthrough results so that you can get to the expert level in chess, and I'm showing you the path, specifically what separates players on that level and how you can achieve that without the need for having the Carlsen level talent or anything fancy. So any player can definitely do this by following the proven footsteps of others who already did that, and I'm showing you the path here in this course so you can do this and achieve the results that most players will never be able to achieve in their entire lifetime. Thank you very much for watching. Best of luck in your chess battles.